Hi, greetings to all. Myself, GC Kabi, former Chief Engineer, Central Public Works Department, and arbitrator in the Ministry of Urban Development. Myself, I am Fellow of Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and currently Chairman, Indian Institution of Technical Arbitrators, Delhi State Center. At the outset, I congratulate CISC and also I am privileged to be given this opportunity to speak in this conference. My topic is due process in construction arbitration. Now, the topic of due process in construction arbitration is to be seen with the current background when the construction industry is facing an unprecedented liquidity crisis. This was the situation for quite some time, but accentuated by the COVID-19 further. And even the government is trying to find out ways and means to ease the financial positions of the contractors to some extent in that. Now, arbitration as a dispute resolution mechanism has seen a meteoric rise in last few decades. And what gives legitimacy to arbitration? It is the due process of arbitration. If you see this whole statutory mechanisms, Section 28 of the Indian Contract Act makes an exception for arbitration agreement. So arbitration agreements in restraint of legal proceedings are not void. All other agreements in restraint of legal proceedings are void. In 2015, the Arbitration and Conciliation Act further amends subsection 3 of section 28 and section 34. By amending the section 28 subsection 3, it brings out some flexibility to the tribunal on interpretation or construction of the terms of the contract. And this is very, very important because construction contracts are contextual and not purely textual. Similarly, the public policy grounds have further been restricted under Section 34. Also in 2019, Section 34(2)(a) has also been restricted further regarding challenge of arbitral awards. Now, this gives additional responsibility on the arbitral tribunal that the due process is followed in arbitration to have a legitimate process. It requires time. Now the question is that apparently there is a tension between the due process to be followed in arbitration and the efficiency of arbitration. But is it really so? If we look into the whole mechanism of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996, we shall find that there has been an attempt to balance the due process and the efficiency. Now, Section 18 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996, following the Article 18 of the Ancestral Model Law, enshrines the process of due process. The parties are to be treated with equality, and each party is to be given full opportunity to present its case. Similarly, there is a provision in Section 34(2)(a) particularly on the procedural requirements to be followed while conducting the arbitration. Having said that, the due process is not an absolute process. If we look other provisions of the Act, this becomes clear. Now, Section 19 of the INC Act 1996 is vital regarding the procedure. Firstly, subsection 1 provides that Evidence Act and CPC, the tribunal will not be bound by it. Subsection 2 of section 19 empowers the parties to follow a procedure. And to that extent, fast track procedure has been introduced, and parties may agree to go for uh, follow arbitration process without even a hearing. Now, what is the principle of due process? Classically, the due process means the natural justice and the right to be heard, the odi alteram partem, and right to equality. Now, if we look section 19, when parties have not agreed for a procedure, subsection 3 authorizes the tribunal to decide or determine the procedure. And subsection 4 of section 19, this determination includes both admissibility and relevance of evidence. Now, this is very vital. Now, in the COVID situation right now, if one party is interested and wants to proceed with the arbitration and other party is not interested, citing that it is not interested to go for a video conferencing or other virtual methods. So there is no agreement between the parties. In that case, if we look into section 19, the tribunal is authorized to decide on the procedure. So this is something, the efficiency of the arbitral process can be preserved, and there are enough mechanisms under section 19 in this regard. Similarly, if you see section 23, the subsection 1, it requires certain timeline to be agreed. And now, after 2015 and then 2019 particularly, there is a timeline fixed for completion of the pleadings. So section 23 will be governed by it. Now, under section 18 or section 23, where parties can agree for a procedure, they cannot derogate from these timelines. So here again, efficiency has been considered one of the key issues. Now, even regarding amendment of the pleadings, the power has been given under section 23 to the tribunal whether to admit such amendments of pleading considering the delay in making it or not. Similarly, section 24, subsection 1, it empowers when parties, unless parties have agreed otherwise, to the tribunal to decide how the arbitration shall be conducted, whether oral hearings are to be done. Of course, unless both the parties have not agreed otherwise, oral hearing is a requirement except for fast track procedure. But regarding all other presentations and methods, what type of evidence is to be done, ample power has been given under section 24 read with section 19 in the act. So there has been a balance worked out here between section 18 and these provisions here. Similarly, section 25 subsection A, if a claimant fails to submit its pleadings or statement of claims without sufficient cause, even the proceedings can be terminated. Under subsection B of section 25, if the respondent fails to file the statement of defense without sufficient cause, then he may forfeit the right to file the statement of defense. Under subsection C, the tribunal can proceed with the proceedings even one party is absent after, of course, due notice. So these are the powers which are given, and the tribunals have to consider these things, because if the overall timeline of say 18 months is exceeded or parties have not agreed, it is probably the tribunal shall solely be responsible for such delay, even if it is considering the requirement of a party. Now, let us look in section 18. Section 18 only requires parties to be treated with equality while giving full opportunity. It does not say parties are to be treated equitably. So, the tribunal has the responsibility also to conduct the arbitration within the timeline while following the due process. So there has been a fine balance here. Now, let us look what are the basic difficulties in doing so. Now, there may be certain difficulties, like in the beginning, there may be challenge on the appointment of arbitrator under section 12 and 13. There may be challenge of jurisdiction under section 16. There may be other interim measures under section 17, which may consume time. Now, there may be issues of framing of issues. Now, one of the issues which may take time sometimes is the discovery. So, again, the arbitration tribunal can consider the relevance as well as materiality. If you see the IBC guidelines of taking evidence, it is not the relevance alone. It is the materiality of this evidence, which is also a factor in considering admissibility of evidence. So, whether parties have agreed or tribunal has decided the procedure, one most important thing to maintain efficiency of arbitral process, if the tribunal makes proper procedural orders at every stage, and that shall streamline the whole hearing process, and subsequent difficulties can be avoided. Having done most of the things, one of the biggest time consuming issues happens in basically on evidentiary proceedings. And again, on the evidentiary proceedings, the tribunal has the power under section 19(4) to consider how much and what evidences are admissible, what weightage and material is to be considered to this. So there are powers on the tribunal to control the arbitral process. One difficulty, particularly in construction arbitration, is that if the tribunal does not have domain expertise, because though there is a provision under section 26, tribunal can appoint an expert on certain issues which requires expertise, and this may be required in some specialized cases. But this need not be resorted to in a routine manner if the sole arbitrator or at least one of the members in a three-member tribunal is having domain expertise, field experience in construction, and that will minimize and improve the time requirement and improve the efficiency of the arbitral process. So, in conclusion, I would submit that efficiency and due process, these are not completely antithetical. Due process is not an absolute process in arbitration. The commercial purpose of arbitration in construction arbitration must be kept in view. Now, there is a statutory timeline in India to be followed in arbitration. However, tribunal should take care of the important aspects where a party is given due opportunities to present its case and justice is done. So there has to be the tension between what a party thinks it has to present and what the arbitrator finds or decides is necessary to arrive at a conclusion. That has to be finely balanced with all fairness and for doing justice. Thank you very much.